Good morning, and welcome to the Daniel Baldwin Show. It is Monday, February 10th, and the clock is on. Super Bowl Sunday just went by. Philadelphia Eagles dominating the Kansas City Chiefs, and I can't say that I was unhappy to see that. I think that when you're going into a Super Bowl, there are certain factors. Is there a team in it that's one of your teams? For me, that would be the New York Giants. And then behind the Giants would be the Buffalo Bills, certainly, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers I like too. So those three teams, if those three teams aren't in it for me, I don't have a vested interest in either team, particularly Kansas City. I actually don't like them very much. And I think that's easy to say. They've been so dominant in the game in the past years. But Philadelphia, there was a little bit of a connection for me. There was a connection for me because they got Saquon Barkley, who was a running back who played for the Giants for many years. And you have to remember, too, that when you're a Giants fan, there's one team, really one team. Yes, the Cowboys, yes, other teams in your division. But when you say Philly, when you say the Eagles, you just knew, over those tough years, too, when we would have 5-6 wins in a season. And we'd be lucky to have those. And I'm talking about Eli Manning and winning Super Bowls. I'm talking about the years as a kid where we weren't very good. But even when we were good, if Philadelphia came to New York, or you had to, God forbid, go into Philadelphia and play an Eagles team that had 2 wins, out of 10, you were in a slugfest, man. Those guys are rough down there. The fans are very similar to New York. They're very savvy. They know, football. And they know how to play defense. They're hard-hitting defensive teams traditionally down in Philadelphia. So no matter how good we were, when we had that one game a year that we had to go into Philly, we'd look at each other and go, "Oh God, not Philadelphia again," because they could break you, they could hurt you. So to have one of our greatest players traded to them was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Why would you, first of all, trade Saquon Barkley? Second of all, why would you trade him to an interdivisional rivalry like this to allow him to beat us up?" And certainly he had just an incredible 2,000-yard year. Many of you know me from the years that I was in sports radio and sports television. I was on Fox's Best Damn Sports Show, period, for a long time. And then I had my own ESPN show. So I developed a character through my exposure from ESPN on my show and the Dan Le Batard show called Nostradaniel, who I would pick games, but I would put them in the form of quatrains as Nostradamus did his many predictions. This is what I tweeted out and sent out on social media just about an hour and a half before the game. In the land called Philly and Liberty Bells, a man named Barkley the bowl game compels. St. Patrick of show me in seek of his third, but the birds on the ground are the superior word. The great Nostradaniel has spoken. So I accurately predicted once again. I think since the inception of my doing Super Bowl quatrains, which is over 10 years now, I'm 9-1 or 10-1. I've lost one time. I misspoke. Otherwise, I'm pretty good at Super Bowls. So if you get a chance to take a look at my prediction next year, know that it is from sound and founded formation. So in the game, the Philadelphia Eagles win 40-22, and at one point I think it was like 34-0. It was a blowout. I mean, they really took it to him. Patrick Mahomes actually gained some favor from me. I watched him play, and they really stymied him. They stifled him. He struggled. He threw multiple interceptions. He fumbled the ball. He did not look like this rah-rah, MVP quarterback, whatever. They took it to him. Philly really made him work for it, and it didn't turn out well for him. But what I gained in admiring him, excuse me, because excuse me. Let's show a picture of Mahomes, and then cut back to it, and I'll pick it up again. Here's Mahomes now. Take a look. what I gained in admiring him was that after the game was over, he didn't make any excuses. He didn't make any excuses. Nothing went according to plan, said Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. They suffered an embarrassing 40-22 loss to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. And he goes on to say, credit the Eagles, man. They were better than us from start to finish. Mahomes admitted during his press conference at Super Bowl 59, as he was quoted by Charles Golden, it was a terrible night, not only for the Chiefs, but especially for Mahomes, who struggled against the Eagles defense that forced 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, and sacked him 6 times. Now remember something. To be sacked 6 times, imagine how many times they had to hurry him or how many times he felt that pressure, that he was almost sacked or had to run, away from pressure that was on him. So they really took it to him. As I predicated before, this wasn't a big, interesting game to me. It really wasn't. I mean, I watched it. I have friends back in upstate New York, I know, that live and die Philly. And so, for those kinds of people in my life, I wanted to, watch a game. And it is the Super Bowl, so it's a big event. There's lots of things that come with the Super Bowl. The commercials come, I wait every year and would have to critique these commercials professionally. So I wait to see what's going to come out. But one of the things that came out to me that I was quite shocked to find out was this article, which was Trump, first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl, brings members of Congress to the big game. So of course I had to look while I'm looking at my live feed while I'm watching the game. And I thought, wow, Donald Trump's the first president. I mean, the Super Bowl's been around since, I want to say, maybe not Kennedy, but Lyndon Johnson, I think. I think Lyndon Johnson, it started. And then, of course, right on through all the presidents. And this is the first president to ever go to a Super Bowl. And so I found that fascinating. And I wanted to research that a little bit more and go into it. And sure enough, I found statements, and I'm paraphrasing, that were made by Trump. But he said, I think that the nation, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of chaos. I think they needed to see me. I think they needed, why wouldn't a president go to the Super Bowl and show his support? I think he inaccurately picked Kansas City. He thought that Mahomes, because of him being so successful, he was going to win. He should have just called me, Mr. President. I would have told you what was going to happen, as I did in your elections and many other things that I've put out on social media to let people know what's coming. But under the story, if you had to dig a little bit more, there's a lot of controversy now that, Doge is rolling back on many, many things that we're wasting money on, straight out rip-offs, connections that people have to political parties that have gotten them paid. And they're getting exposed. Medicaid and Medicare and stuff like that are next online. Department of Education, stuff that one side of that aisle is saying, why would you allow that to happen? They're bringing meals to children. Well, this is kind of like the bills thing. When you make a bill, there's a bill that says we want fresh water in Michigan. Michiganders deserve to drink, and children deserve to drink good quality water. Well, no one's going to argue that. No one's going to argue that. The great state of Michigan, and one of our 50 states, and we love it, and anything to do with children. You headline it like that, but you don't realize that in that bill on page 49, it's not just the solution to how to get water to them up in Lansing or whatever it is. They hide things. They add things to the bill that once you vote for the bill, you're voting for everything that's in that entire package. And suddenly there's stuff that money's going to support, groups that have terrorist connections. And again, I'm making this up, but I'm just trying to layer it for you so you understand what we're talking about here. So when the president turns around and he says he wants to, through Doge and through Elon Musk's research, he's going to stop this wasting of money, he has to stop the whole bill. He has to stop the whole process. So of course Medicaid does stuff that we want them to do. Of course, Medicare helps people do things we want them to do. Of course, the Department of Education supports things. They support the national civil rights of everyone to have, or the national rights of everyone to get an education that's paid for through our taxes. So we don't not support that, but we have to strip everything down first in order to clean it up. Listen, I use this analogy, and I'll use it again because it is absolutely what I'm trying to say. If you have an infection due to an injury, and there's an injury here, the system is broken. It's absolutely broken. Sometimes you have to re-break the arm and set the bone properly in order for it to heal properly and get all the natural nutrients that need to go to the end of your hand so you don't chop your whole hand off. Or an infection that's gotten really, really bad, and they look at it and they go, oh my God, that's really infected. They got to open that thing up. They got to squeeze everything out. They got to cut stuff out of it. They got to treat it. Then they got to sew it back up and let it heal. But we got to cut this open right now. As a country, we have a lot of things that are going on that we have to cut open. So I'm reading in the social media stuff and I'm kind of cracking up. The president goes to the game and people are writing, I thought he was trying to save money. It cost $4 million for him to land Air Force One, and then the extra security stuff. This is the president of the United States. He's the president. If he wants to go and have his his security detail guard him so he can go to the Super Bowl, he has that right to go there. Did anyone look at what he did before the game? Is anyone interested in what he did before the game that sits on the other side of the aisle that wants to criticize everything this guy does? Let me tell you what he did. President Donald Trump is at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans watching the Super Bowl, marking the first time a sitting president has attended the game. Among the elected officials that accompany the president are House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, South Carolina, and Senator Katie Britt, Republican, Alabama, and Senator Tommy Tuberville, Republican, Alabama. So he got some of his team going to the game too. Had to pay for that. The Super Bowl 59 matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles comes 1 month after terrorists drove a truck down Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing 14 people and injuring dozens more. Before entering his suite, Trump met with victims' families, emergency personnel, and members of the New Orleans Police Department. That was part of why he went. That was part of why he wanted to go. Because this terrifying, senseless act of killing took place right before the Georgia football game. I could go off right now on stuff that went on, in the pullout of Afghanistan and so many other things in North Carolina after that terrible storm. And there was absolutely no one, the border, no one, no Harris, no Biden, nothing for weeks at a time. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say that this guy turned around, got on his plane during a really chaotic, crazy, just got into the office again, into the White House, and met with those families. What do you think that meant to those families? What do you think it meant to the families to have the actual sitting president of the United States saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, and we're going to do what we can, and we're going to make people that have allowed our guard down, we might make some of them pay, and we're certainly going to do our best to make sure things like this don't happen anymore, that this country can become more united and less divided, and blah, 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 blah. So that didn't make a lot of headlines. That didn't, and certainly a lot of people on the internet talking about how much money it cost. How much would you pay to be the mother of a girl who's walking down a Bourbon Street, who's in college, who you've groomed and raised, like a sculptor. You've sculpted this young human being, and she senselessly gets mowed down by a car, killed. You're always nervous when you let your kid go out. You're always nervous when you let them go away from you. When they get to that age where they start going to college and everything else, you're scared to death. I know you know how I feel. No matter how well you raised them, no matter what you taught them, times have changed. Times have changed in this country. We didn't worry when I was a kid about sending your kids out of the house. I remember a woman came up to me once and she said, you know, I was online at an ATM on a Sunday. I'm on my way to church. I have no money to put in the basket and I'm late. And so there's like 3 people right by the ATM. One's on there, another lady, and then me. And I'm, you know, the woman's on there. And this lady that's standing next to me is probably 80, at least 80 years old. And she said, excuse me, Mr. Baldwin, but I recognize you. And I said, hi, ma'am, how are you? And she said she was well, and we were talking a little bit. She said, you know, I'm so proud of you that you moved out here. You know, I really am, to raise your daughters here in Georgia. And I said, well, you know, I was in LA for a while, and then I went to New York, and to be by my mom, and my mom passed away. So when I came down here, my girl said, you know, let's live here. It's nice here. And we moved to Atlanta. Out in the country, kind of, you know, suburbia. We're not really in the city. And she said, well, I admire that in you. She said, you know, I said, well, things have changed. She said, well, not here. Things haven't really changed here. Things haven't changed here. You know, and I said, really? I said, they haven't changed here, you don't think? And she said, I said, are you from Atlanta? And she said, yes, I am. And I said, and you raised your children here? She said, I raised my 4 children here. I said, are they still around this area? And this woman was, you know, I'm 64. This happened about 2 years ago. And, but she had to be not my parents' age, but, you know, in between us. So we weren't that far off in age. And I said, are your grandchildren here? And she said, oh, yes, Milton, Alpharetta, Sandy Springs. And she started naming some of the other towns. And I said, well, I grew up on Long Island, about 45 miles outside of New York City, arguably the biggest and most powerful city in our country and one of the biggest in the world. So it comes with its problems, being outside of New York, violence, drugs, so on. In 1968, I was 8 years old, and my mother opened that door up and let 6 kids go running out of the house. My mother didn't know where we were going. There was no cell phone coverage. There were no cell phones. There were no beepers. We went out, and my mother had no idea what was going on. We knew one thing. We knew right from wrong. 2 things, actually. And we knew that we better be at that dinner table before 6 o'clock when my father sat down, or we were in big trouble. If Daddy beat you to the dinner table, Mom was pissed. So we knew we had to be back at a certain time. Some people will tell you when the street lamps go on. You know, we knew you had to run home soon because dinner was coming. And I said, ma'am, would you let your 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old daughter run out on a bicycle and take off for 12 to 15 hours here in Alpharetta, Georgia? And she froze. She froze. And she looked at me and she just kind of looked, she was a little tiny thing. And she just looked up at me and I said, so it has changed. It has changed. It's not the same. I would not let my kids go out. I don't know. I would be a fan of letting my daughter go to the Super Bowl by herself or go down to Mardi Gras or whatever. It's changed. It's not changed for the better in those departments. We now don't worry anymore about whether some boy's going to take advantage of her, or she's going to drink too much and get in trouble, or, you know, the stereotypical stuff you worry about as a father with a daughter. I worry whether they're going to come home, whether they're going to be sex trafficked, or some god-awful thing is going to happen, because it's become much more common that that happens. Back in the day, on Long Island where I grew up, if you did something that was questionable, we didn't always call the cops. You know, me, Tony Rosselli, Tattoo Joey, you know, Craig McCarthy, guys that I knew that, you know, tough Italian, tough Irish guys, families, firemen, you know, salt of the earth guys, smart guys, but, you know, guys that I knew. We knocked on your door, yanked you right out of your living room and taught you a lesson. And if you didn't like it, you packed up your stuff and you moved. We policed it ourselves. We were allowed to do that. Now criminals have more rights than we do. You do that, you go to jail. You do that, you're this, you're that. You know, you get labeled something and you get in trouble. So those options aren't open to us anymore. The world has changed. It's a more violent place. But I will go back to this now to say to you, if God forbid anything, someone I knew or in my family or whatever, an event like that happened, to have a standing president take the time. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do that. And I'm tired of hearing that he does it for the cameras. Where's the other presidents doing it for the cameras? If it's so good, if it's so good to do it for the cameras, why didn't Biden do it? Why didn't Harris do it? Why didn't she show up when she was so unpopular and let other people see her at the border taking care of these separated families and all the stuff that, they ended up saying it was terrible that Trump caused and blah, blah. It was happening when Obama. They were using pictures of the Obama administration's exodus of people, of illegals, as Trump. Took the pictures of Obama kicking 2 million people out. Said, look what he's done to the families. They're in cages. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't even the right era. The pictures were taken from a previous administration, and then they blamed it on Trump. If the pictures are so good, how come they're not taking them themselves when they have the opportunity to do it? No. Here's a guy who I don't always agree with, but here's a guy who takes the time. He takes the time. He walks over, he says, how you doing in school? He invigorates and energizes kids, and he cares. You may not agree with how he does it. You may not always agree with how he wants to get to the finish line, but he is pushing that ball down the field 100% of the time, for sure. So I know this is supposed to be a Super Bowl show, and I'm trying to keep it about the Super Bowl, but I'm trying to tie it into what I believe thematically my audience likes, is the fact that, I talk about what's going on in politics. I talk about the condition of our country. I'm concerned, man. I'm really, really concerned. As more of this information comes out right now, and the Super Bowl, the platform of sports, it was interesting. My wife said to me this morning, I said, I don't know that I have an entire show to do on the Super Bowl. My wife looked at me and said, well, she started bringing up historical connections between the Super Bowl, sports, and politics. And she brought up Muhammad Ali, who I, met Muhammad a number of times, particularly after he got older and he was a little more sick. But I sat with him at some benefits before, and we shared. He loved a TV series I did, Homicide: Life in the Streets. He was a big fan of the show. And I was pretty savvy to knowing boxing, so we spoke about boxing and fighting. And he was always amazed, Muhammad, about how people would try to say things like, what would happen if he fought this guy? What would happen if he had fought? Because it happened to him when he came up. What would happen if he had fought guys, 30 years before his rise in the 60s and 70s? And of course, Mike Tyson, what would happen, and blah, blah, blah. So he would joke with me and always put his hands up to me real slow. I was a huge fan of his. And I was thinking about what my wife said, that he refused to go to Southeast Asia and he refused to fight a war for religious reasons that he had. And I think sometimes his ability to use his religious reasons why he didn't want to fight was of course true, but once again, this was, he had a great line. He said, well, how many black people do you know that have a problem with people that are from North Vietnam? And I kind of looked at the question. I went, you got a really good point. I mean, what does the average American, black or white, involvement with North Vietnam, or their engagement and loyalty to South Vietnam? So we're going to send young black men over to fight a war that was started and provoked by white military men and white business interest men to benefit their people, to benefit the industrial war machine, while black lives are lost. And Muhammad Ali said, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to support that. That was a huge political statement, a great risk to his career, to alienating white America. He didn't care. He didn't care. He was He was quite iconic. And so there's a connection between sports and politics. And then, of course, she brought up Colin Kaepernick, who I have to tell you, and I've said this before, but I'll say it publicly again. I had to apologize on air on ESPN to Colin. And no one asked me to, no one forced me to. It was the realization that I was wrong. That initially, I still wish that Kaepernick had chosen a different way to show his protest. So let's really quickly take a look at what Kaepernick was protesting. He was protesting violence against African-American men by white police officers, specifically in Chicago. There was no question. There was a number of incidents. And of course, what happened to Floyd up in Minnesota. And, so he took a knee during the anthem to protest and bring attention to this terrible plight. Stop. My problem was, black or white, to be the mother of a kid who lost his life in the Middle East, to come home in a box and have this guy who was making a lot of dough playing football. He wasn't carrying a rifle. He wasn't getting shot at. So I initially took that and said, well, what a slap in the face to the mothers and fathers and families of these fallen soldiers. This guy has a lot of balls, and this guy, needs to check himself. And this guy, and then I talked to a friend of mine who served, a close friend, who was there, shot at, shooting, the whole bit in the zone. And he said, yeah, bro, I don't agree with you. And I said, what are you talking about, man? If you can't, I'm over there doing this so that Colin Kaepernick has the right to take a knee. He has every right to do that in this country. And in fact, I defend his right to do it. May not necessarily, not with the issue about the violence against African-American men. I may not like his choice of how he's protesting. But in this country, what makes us different than so many others is they say you have the right, but you really don't. And many of them don't even say you have the right. You just don't. You're jailed in China and Russia. If you go up against the system, you're done for. And so for that reason, I had to really say to myself, wow. And I had to take that home. I remember I didn't sleep that whole night thinking about it. I went on air the next day and I said, hey, listen, I have to say I'm sorry. And I had like a bunch of people, because I'm pretty, rah-rah patriot. And I believe in my country. I believe in a huge supporter of our veterans. I just don't think we could ever pay veterans, police, firemen, we can't give them enough. Teachers, these people are the real deal. They're my heroes. And so I had to eat it. I had to say I was really, really sorry about this. I was really, really wrong, and I was. So once again, I'm going to tell you that I'm so happy that this guy's president now compared to the last situation we were in, because he wears it on his sleeve, man. He's one of us, and I really believe that. We're going to have to wait for the dust to settle for the Musk thing, which is coming out now. Just how many programs he's tearing apart, how many this, how many that, blah, 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 blah. He's got to do it that way. President Trump defended his first 3 weeks back in the White House, punctuated by federal government disruption and promises of American expansionism. During an interview with Fox News Channel's Bret Baier that aired on Super Bowl Sunday, one of Trump's biggest moves in his second term in the White House was asking billionaire Elon Musk to lead an entity called Department of Government Efficiency to focus on cutting federal spending. Man, this is getting a lot of attention. And I just, for the life of me, I got to ask you guys to please write in your questions. Please write in your comments. We're going to put out the shorts and everything, and we'll try to break this up. But here's a short for you right now. So, you're paying taxes. I'm paying taxes. We're all paying these taxes. And there's a bill that has to be paid. So there's a bucket of bills. Teachers, roads, bridges, you go right on down to it. FBI, CIA, military, but this big bowl. And all that has to be paid for. So we know, based on every employee, we can actually do an algorithm that would tell us, excuse me, we could do an algorithm that tells us how much this is going to cost and basically come up with a budget of what it's going to cost to run the whole show. And that's got to be an astronomical budget. But nevertheless, and then there's a bowl over here of all the money that's coming in that we take the money out of to pay for the stuff that's the bills in the bowl. So there's two bowls. I got a call. It was two houses ago. This is my third house in Georgia now. I went from Sandy Springs that I rented while I was doing a movie, this big house. And then I went to Marietta, and now I'm here in Milton. So this is my third house renting. I should probably buy something. Save some money. Huh. So I get a call from the Department of Water, and they said to me, hey man, your water bill is like $900 this week. Or some crazy number. I said, what do you mean? They said, yeah, no, the bill, something's probably wrong. And they sent me a bill for it. And I said, I'm not paying that. They said, well, it's probably a leak on the line somewhere. I said, okay, well, why am I paying for that? I'm not using the water. And if you detect it, I'm not going out and checking my water meter. So come turn the water off, but fix it. So they came in and they, did all this seismographic and this kind of testing and the sound testing. And they found it. It was in the line, not on the road, but was like the line that went from the main line and started onto my property. So they had to dig up the yard and they had to do all this other stuff. And I remember looking at that and thinking to myself, wow, what a waste. Like how long, shouldn't there be an alarm that goes off or something that tells you when something is being that wasteful or something that like immediately the spinning of the thing was like as if I was running all the hoses in the house and the water was just dumping out into the property. So, and we got, actually there was a depression on the side of the house that I hadn't gone over there to look at. I don't cut the lawn every weekend. Okay, so they fix it. Now they're happy. They're happy because they know I'm not going to pay and they're not just letting that water run and blah, blah. And I'm happy because I'm not paying that water bill and I don't want to waste water either, but I also don't want to get billed for it and get involved. And you get the picture? This guy has been told to take a look at all the water lines. Let's be preventative. Let's look now and make sure we're not leaking water. And if it's happening over at Baldwin's house, how many other houses is it happening to? How many is it just a small leak that the bill is going up a little bit? Or how many is undetected? We have gaping holes. I mean, but we're talking billions and billions of dollars. There was a statistic that came out. I love this one. We are paying, according to the records for Social Security, we are paying for 2 million people that are 112 years old or older are collecting Social Security in the United States. Now, I would be willing to bet that there aren't 2 million people over 112 years old in the world. Do you know anyone that's 112 years old? Do you know anyone that's lived to be over 106 years old? Like wherever you see the records, or I hear these people in India or somewhere in Soviet Georgia or whatever it is. Have you really heard of that? That there's 2 million people in the US. So what does that tell you? That tells me that there are people that have died that somehow have not been marked dead. They might have died 30 years ago, and families or somebody is collecting that check or it's being auto-deposited into someone's account, and they continue to, to get $585 a week or a month or whatever the hell the number is. It doesn't really matter. That's true inefficiency. If we're spending and sending condoms to the Belgian Congo and blah, blah, like all these programs that are coming out are mind-boggling. We're spending $20, $30 million. I want you just wait, just listen. I want you to take a breath, and I want you to imagine what $20 million would do to American veterans, what $100 million would do to help our veterans, what programs for inner city youth education-wise, how would $250 million look to take the 30 biggest cities and give them 10 million each for computers and books and whatever, that's 300 million. There's billions, maybe trillions of dollars being wasted. Now, in those two bowls we talked about, you're filling the bowl that has the cash in to pay for the things that we have to pay for. It's your money, it's my money. So why is anyone upset with figuring out that they're stealing money out of our bowl that pays for all of our stuff, and that our standards are dropping, our education, where, we're 19th in literacy, and again, I don't want to hear the accuracy of the numbers. We're not performing at a level, and we're struggling to pay the bills and to feed our people and to keep our economy stable and to keep costs down. But we're just throwing money away, and now we got a guy that's walking there going, "Hey, sir, you dropped your wallet. Is that wallet full of cash yours?" "Yes, you dropped that." And he's handing you back your money. And they're criticizing the hell out of him, criticizing Trump for putting him in that position. Why? Well, there's one reason I can think of that makes a lot of sense. If you're one of the people that's benefiting from the ripoff, if you're one of the people that participates somehow, your company or your family or whatever, in what's going on here, then you'd be upset the gravy train's about to end. That's right. So the system by which you've fallen accustomed to is about to get rocked severely, and it's going to change. Praise God. Thank God we're going to expose this and we're going to get this done. Now, is everyone going to get prosecuted? I don't know. I don't know what the extent of this is going to, but it's going to stop. We're going to stop siphoning off that money. We're going to close up the leaks. We're going to patch everything up, and we're going to make it work right. And we're going to see abundance because we're just not throwing it away anymore. We're going to be honest, and we're going to do something about it. Musk, a tech magnate turned special government employee, has had nearly unrestricted access to the federal government departments of information, including Social Security, bank account numbers. A federal judge on Sunday temporarily blocked access to the Treasury Department to Doge following a lawsuit from 19 Democratic attorneys, generals citing the risk of irreparable harm. So these 19 Democratic attorneys think that by giving access to Doge, irreparable harm could follow. Why? Do you really think that Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is going to have access to accounts and do something illegal? Do you really think Elon Musk needs the money to do something that would bring him into question? You don't think they're going to watch him really carefully and what he does audit-wise and so on? That's such BS, man. It's such BS. Let's do as much as we can to slow this process down. Let's do as much as we can to throw a monkey wrench in it if we can, to make it harder for Trump's administration to get things done that he got elected and promised to do. I disagree with it 100%, Trump said of the ruling. I think it's crazy. We have to solve the sufficiency problem. I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific, Trump said during the interview, which was pre-taped and aired as Trump flew to New Orleans to attend the Super Bowl in person, becoming the first sitting president to do so. When asked about the confidence of Musk, Trump said his intentions were good. Trust Elon, Trump said. Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote this time to it. He's into it. With Trump's support, Musk and Doge unit. With Trump's support, Musk and his Doge unit have drastically cut funding for the U.S. Agency of International Development and promised to shut it down on Friday. So again, I would ask you to not trust me with it. Just go look. Go look at some of the things that have been exposed now, where this money is going. And you have to ask yourself, how do we let this happen? How is this possible that some of the things on this list, someone actually sat in an office and went, yeah, go ahead and sign the check and sent it. I mean, it's just amazing. And for those of you out there who think that the president shouldn't have spent the money to go to a Super Bowl and to have some of the meetings that he had with those families and show his support of our, our big sporting event, the biggest one. The World Series is, a series of games. The NBA basketball finals is best out of 7. This is the Super Bowl. This is like the big show known around the world. People from all over the world that don't even play American football. Football to them is our soccer. They watch the Super Bowl because of its pageantry and how big it is. To have an American president sit in that audience and be there, I think was really, really smart of the president. And I support it. I'm very, very happy. So if he needs to spend a couple $1 million, $5 million, $8 million to make sure that he's safe in a world where people want to kill him, and I've already demonstrated the fact that they want to do that, I think I fully support it. The halftime show, which gets an incredible amount of attention. This year, Kendrick Lamar uses his Super Bowl halftime show to settle a vendetta. The first rapper to headline the NFL's biggest stage solo made his Drake diss, Not Like Us, the centerpiece of his set to expense a larger statement. So, I wasn't in this situation. It's kind of, I've gotten a little older. I'm out of this scene. I knew a lot of rappers and a lot of stuff that went on. The Death Row era, late 80s, right on through the 90s. I don't really listen to that music at all anymore. I don't listen to anything that uses the N-word. I don't listen to anything that promotes violence. So I don't listen to these artists anymore. I've had a new light shined on me through my marriage. My wife is African-American. And while I sat there thinking I was cool because I actually got on stage and I rapped with rappers, I got in recording studios and rapped with some famous people on big albums because that was part of the whole Hollywood scene I was in. And my wife, who is a very refined Notre Dame Law School grad, and she looked at me and she said, you can never say that word again near me, in front of me, or if I find out that you ever said that word, I will be incredibly upset with you. And so she took me through what it's like for somebody who's African-American and what that word means to someone who's African-American. And although you can say the word ending in ER or ending with an A, it means nothing different when a white person says that word in any way in front of an African-American. So, and I never knew that, honestly. I knew never to say it in one form. But when I would hear it in a rap song, if it was in a rap song, I didn't write the rap song and I liked the artist and I would sing the song. And she went, you don't have the right to say that. You're not black. So as part of this, when she explained my wife to me, and so let me finish that. So I never promote, listen to music. I took all the rap music out of my library of music, unless I absolutely knew it was like an older 70s, Sugar Hill Gang, those kind of guys who never used those words back then, and there wasn't really violence in rap. I have a few of those songs still left, where I first learned how to rap. But no, to know that anything would be offensive to my wife was enough for me right then and there. But more importantly, to know what that meant to somebody else who was black, to hear me in the past, I would think to myself, my God, were they upset that I was saying that when I was singing it? I was singing it with them, and I was mortified that I had offended people that were my friends. So another one that I had to own, and I had to walk away from because it was the right thing to do. I guess Drake, who is half white and half African-American, was called out that he doesn't have a right to, he doesn't have the full right to use that word, or it was a very complicated issue. And so this is where this song comes from. Of course, he performed Not Like Us in the lead up to Kendrick Lamar's headline performance at the Super Bowl halftime show on Sunday night. Most of the chatter focused on whether he would play the song that was effectively the knockout blow in the months-long battle with Drake last year. So there was a lot of underlying political stuff going on at the halftime show, which I found very interesting. That here's this artist who wasn't as famous as I think Drake was, and according to my wife, this guy sticks to the real stuff. You know, he's not that worried about being as popular as he is worried about delivering certain messages to the world, and particularly to the African American community in his content. And so I thought that was cool. I got an education of learning more about what was going on culturally with this artist and everything, and I support him. I support his stance. I don't care what. I support stances that I don't necessarily know that much about. I don't have to learn that much about it to understand and dig what the person's trying to do. And I might not always agree, but I support his right to do it. But in this one, I thought it was pretty interesting that the halftime show had all this underlying meaning in that. You know, my wife is sitting next to me going, no, you need to understand, blah, blah, blah. And she's pointing everything. I'm trying to follow all of it, you know. So it made me feel old, too. I have to tell you, I felt old, not knowing as much about what was going on and not keeping in time with what's happening in the world. But I will tell you something I was in time with. I was in time with, let me just read this to you. Taylor Swift isn't on her Eras tour anymore. The pop star showed up at the Super Bowl in New Orleans on Sunday, and the fans there gave her a loud chorus of boos when she was shown at Caesars Superdome on the Jumbotron. Let me go on. We can talk about this for a second. Swift, as Kelsey's girlfriend, has quickly become an iconic figure within the Chiefs franchise. But Swift football roots are with the Eagles, as she grew up an Eagles fan in Pennsylvania. Swift and her father abandoned this fandom when she started dating Kelsey last season, so the crowd treated her accordingly in New Orleans. I have to say that I'm an old school, you know, kind of character, you know, with football. I know a lot of players that are now, you know, well into their retirement years. I don't follow it anywhere near as carefully as I did when I was in sports and reporting on sports every day. I mean, you're inundated with how much you have to know. I have to watch college games. I have to read, you know, stats and know names and about what university they came out of, what year, what, you know, just was mind-boggling, you know, to cover all of sports for ESPN. But I got very resentful of this Taylor Swift thing. And I can see why the league did it. I get it. So, you know, it's all about money. And if this was going to bring a new audience, if this is going to bring another 30 million young girls wanting to watch Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs or Kelsey or whatever, I just was like, really? Are we going to cut back to the booth and watch her cheer because he scored another touchdown? How often are we going to do this? I mean, I want to watch a game. So I couldn't tell you, besides my daughters, you know, really much about Taylor Swift. I'm sure she means well. I'm sure she's, you know, a nice enough person. I really don't care. If she never shows up at a football game again, if she marries Kelsey and has 10 kids, if she breaks up with them tomorrow and drops off the face of the earth, it will not have an effect on my life. I promise you. I wouldn't know her if I ran her over with a car. So there you go for my take on it. But the distraction from the game, the amount of time that was spent last year on this woman and her participation in the Kansas City Chiefs. And to tell you something, that this has to be a misprint. Now, I want you all football fans to listen very carefully. This has to be a misprint because it says that she was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Now, I'm going to go to old school Pat Sheridan, my dear friend, who is a true Philadelphia Eagles fan, like anybody else that's from Philly that I know that's a Phillies or Philadelphia Eagles fan or a Philadelphia sports fan, 76ers. You don't change alliance because of a boyfriend. You may add on a team. You may adapt a team. You may add the Buffalo Bills on. You may add, But you're an Eagles fan first and foremost, if you ever were a fan of that team. Just like me, I'm a Giants fan. Do I love the Buffalo Bills? Of course I do. I love Jim Kelly. I love Josh Allen. I mean, those guys, I want to see them do it. I want to see them get over the hump with KC. I want to see the referee stop favoring KC so that they have a chance to actually beat them. And I want to see Buffalo win a Super Bowl. I love Tampa Bay. I do. I love them down there. She was a Philadelphia Eagles fan as a kid. And now because she's dating this guy for 2 years, she lost that. That's not a real Philadelphia Eagles fan. So, wrong. She's not a Philadelphia Eagles fan. She wasn't really a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And if her father, who's older than her, was a Philadelphia Eagles fan and jumped ship because the daughter's dating some guy, that's not how it would go. Philly would go ahead and date him. But no, I'm not. I'm wearing the green. So they rooted for another team. That's such BS. Like that made me sick. But that again, that in a nutshell is why this is a distraction to me as a purist of sport. If you understood and you're a Giants fan, you would look at that and go, yeah, she married a guy who plays for Cincinnati. And I go, well, good luck with Cincinnati. And if they roll into New York, we're going to kick their ass. Like, that's a fan. So if I don't see Taylor Swift at a game now, if God forbid I hope this doesn't happen. I really do. I want you to know the tragedy for breaking up with Kelsey. Yeah, I don't really care. So if I never see this chick at a game again, I'm going to be okay with that. I'm really going to be okay with that. The NFL, I'm sure, is going to, have a touchdown celebration where he breaks the ring out and asks her next season or whatever's going to happen. I think that's great. There was another article that showed her video very confused at the boos. Like, it kind of threw her off. She was so used to, Taylor, and everything going really well for her. And it showed the fans down there. They don't mess around down in New Orleans. I mean, that's an NFC team. So, and they didn't like that this chick jumped ship on them. So they gave her, what she would get at Giant Stadium for sure. Like, go home, honey. Who cares that you're watching the game or that you're a fan of the game? You're not a fan of what we're a fan of, which is football. And you jump ship for your boyfriend, so you're not really a fan of Philadelphia. But she was noticeably shaken, like looking around going like, wow, because the boos were pretty intense. I mean, they let her have it. And she did not know what to do with that. You could see where she almost it looked like she was getting nervous that like, oh my God, they're going to come storm the Bastille, And they were to come up there, that would have been awesome. They like rocked the room, scared her. But anyway, I thought that was quite interesting that we didn't have to deal with a Super Bowl where we showed her all the time. Kelsey didn't play really well. Mahomes didn't get him the ball. So I don't know whether it wasn't that he wasn't open for passes. He caught a few passes, but it was insignificant. They got their asses kicked. And the great Nostradamus predicted as such. So all in all, I have to say that to the commercials, it didn't grab me that I watched, a commercial that I'm going to walk away. There was Matthew McConaughey's commercial I liked. I did over the whole controversy, or they try to make it into like a plot that the Super Bowl was all around food. If you go back, Google Matthew McConaughey's commercial. And it's funny. It was a funny concept. Kevin Bacon, who doesn't like bacon? They had some other drop-in quick cameos from other celebrities on it, and it was smart. It was well thought out. It was silly. So I like when you poke fun at something, and it's obvious that you're poking fun at it. You're not trying to recreate the wheel here. We're going to have some fun with the commercial. And it was a fun commercial. I saw that as the best commercial. Otherwise, again, I didn't see anything that I thought was that, man, these people are paying, I think it was $8 million for a 30-second ad. So if I'm paying $8 million, now think about this for a minute, and it's 34 to nothing, and my commercial hasn't come on yet. and you're just watching the sets go blink, blink, blink. They're turning on music. People are partying at their parties for the Super Bowl. I think most people probably in the background leave the game on, but I think most people in the background leave the game on, but wow. I'd be bummed. I'd be bummed if I paid that kind of money to put a Super Bowl commercial on and the game was such a blowout. Now I guess they dressed it up a little bit by scoring 20 points near the end and everything, but otherwise it was an uneventful. I didn't think the Super Bowl was great. What I did take from it, though, most of all, was a chance for those families from this terrible terrorist attack down there to see the president and go on the field and heal and show them that we're not going to forget about them and their family members, that we care. I thought that was really cool. That was my highlight of the Super Bowl. That was absolutely my highlight, that those people got to do that. You know, the show is a political show, for sure. I mean, I'm not, it's not a health show all the time, although I try to bring up some things that are interesting. It's not a sports show. Today's episode is going to be titled something about the Super Bowl. I haven't even come up with the title yet. I'll put it out in a little while. But I wanted to say that having these types of events in order to rally together by, even an election or a Super Bowl or a World Series or the NBA Finals or the Indy 500 or the World Cup is another one. The Olympics is a great one, where all the nations come together. These are rallying points. These are opportunities to join forces, to try to find the commonality, to try to get things done. So I welcome that opportunity, even when the opinion is very different. I welcome the opportunity to learn something about what somebody else wants in their life. That's a big lesson for me. Because, I don't know unless I hear from you. I don't know what you think or what you want. So I'm going to ask, as I've asked before, continue to make your comments. And for sure on Friday, I'm going to be in Miami. I'm going to do the show from Miami. And I am going to read off questions starting this week, for sure. So write in your questions, make your statements, tell me, all the bad stuff you got to tell me about myself, my family, and all the amazing things that people write me. It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that people write me. On social media, I've had to block more people from my social media lately. Guys that have been my friends from Oregon, and I don't necessarily agree with their dissection of Musk and what's going on, but I just can't understand the common sense of it. So when I say, so you're upset that he's going to expose where $300 million went to a program that the money never went to what you thought. Well, let's do $300 million on buying books for children in less advantaged situations in inner cities. And you find out that the money didn't go to that. It went to some bank account in Greece, and they spent $20 million on the books and pocketed $280 million of it through other things they did with the money. You don't want to know that? Even if I have to shut down all the books, they don't get them. Even if I have to shut down temporarily whether they get the money and we redial it, we retool it so the money does go to buying them food or buying them books or whatever the program was. You don't want that to happen? So you just dislike this guy so much that you're just going to talk SHI about him, and you're just going to try to cripple everything that they're doing because you hate him. So it's a hate-based thing then, is that? And I write it out. So is it you just hate him that much that you can't see someone is sticking their hand into your bank account and pulling the money out, and you have to replenish that money because they're wasting that tax dollars. So your taxes are going to go up, and you're like, he's going to raise taxes. No, he's trying to stop this wasteful, inefficient way of spending money, and illegal in some cases, so that the money can actually go towards what we said we wanted it to go for. How do you not see that as good? How do you not see that? So your neighbor behind you is running, he runs an electrical line into a, remote, your RV electricity pole in the back, and you don't know it. And they're running their whole house off your electric. And it's happening in kind of a, they only have 4 or 5 things to run off. Your bill's going up a little bit, but you're not really noticing. And your neighbor goes, hey, Tommy's taking your electricity. Because he was taking mine, and I was wondering where, so I followed the cord. It goes right into your wall. You don't want to know that? Now, if you want to give Tommy the electricity, and you told Tommy to go do it, you tell the guy, hey, mind your own business. Or no, I'm well aware of what Tommy's doing. Or you go knock on Tommy's door and say, unplug it or I'm calling the cops. Whatever you're going to do. Whatever you're going to do. But you don't want to know that? You don't want to be armed with the information of knowing who's ripping you off, how they're ripping you off, how much they're ripping you off for, so you have a choice to do what you need to do about it. You can be charitable at the end if you want to, that's fine. But it wasn't charity that got them the source. It was illegal activity or misleading, or you don't want to know that. So I had to write to people, do you not want to know? Like, you're against that? The money's not going to where you thought it was going to. No, just more and more hate. Just hate. I've never seen the world and the country so hateful. I've never seen it. I had a talk, I'm going to end on this note. I had a talk with a person that said to me that it's Trump's fault that the airplanes are crashing. And I said, huh? It's Trump, very smart person. It's Trump's fault that the airplanes are crashing. Look at the one that crashed in Philly, the private jet. And look at the helicopter over I said, so let me get this right. Because of Trump somehow is the cause of the helicopter flying into the side of the jet line, or the commercial jet over the Potomac River, killing all those people, 67, I think. Yes, he is. I said, well, I can't wait to hear this, because I haven't, I do my show and I've done a whole episode on this accident. And whether it was terrorist activity, whether a drone flew it, whether it was a suicide bombing mission, pilot error, whatever, please enlighten me, because if you can substantiate to me and prove to me that Donald Trump played a role in that, I really want to know, because I'm going to talk about that on my show. Well, things are so chaotic right now that people are probably doing that at a protest, I said, okay, all right, so let me digest that for a minute. So the pilot maybe acted alone, or the whole crew said, we don't believe in what Trump's doing and Elon Musk and what they're doing. So let's fly our helicopter into the side of a commercial airliner and kill everyone in protest. No, I'm not saying he did that, this person said. I'm not saying he did that. But I'm just saying that it's so wild and chaotic that people are upset. And I went, yeah, I'm not clear, because I thought you said it's Donald Trump's fault that all these planes crashed. She goes, it is. It is Donald Trump's fault. I said, okay. Well, again, I'm hearing you, and I really respect this person, and care about this person. So I'm trying to really go through, like how you come to this conclusion. But nevertheless, the point more about it is not whether or not I think that that's an accurate statement. Of course, I don't think that's accurate. But that this person has been made to believe that because of the disruption that Donald Trump is causing as president by dialing things back, that somehow that's the cause of these events that take place. Like a general overall chaoticness or something like that. But this is what the stuff that I'm reading on my social media that has spawned. I'm so tired of reading it. I can take it on the chin. You can criticize me. You can say what a loser. The unknown Baldwin, the fat Baldwin, the this Baldwin, the something Baldwin speaks. Like, I take your shot. Take your shot at it. But one thing I do is I speak directly on the subject. I speak about what I think. I'm committed to what I believe, and I back it up in my actions. I don't just talk about it because it's I'm trying to win favor with certain people or have other people not like me. I tell you what I think, how I think, why I think it, and I try to explain it in a way that makes sense, that you can either say, wow, that's really interesting, or wow, that's very true, or no, it's not. And we can debate that. We can talk about it and back it up with facts and science and so on and so forth. But I can't just listen to people anymore on my sites. They can, like I said, they can say things about me, and they can say things about my family. I mean, I've gone through god awful things about my brother Alec, just, we look very similar. We sound a lot alike. Comparisons that people will write, just mean things about his past and relate them to me, or ask me questions about them on open, media sites and that have nothing to do with what we're talking about. Just to be cruel, just to be harmful to me, just to be unfair or hateful. So I am going to start, particularly on my personal pages, just cutting people out. I'm not even going to explain it anymore. I don't want to live my life in that place. I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go upstairs, and my beautiful wife is upstairs with my son, and we're going to go run around and run errands and do stuff today after I've done the show. And I'm going to have my happy, joyous, God-fearing, lovely, lovely life, well beyond what anybody else writes about me or about what I believe on social media sites. So that is my twisted around Super Bowl edition of the show. As you know, I end my show in prayer. So if prayer is not something that you're into, then you should probably turn it off, and I'll talk to you from Miami on Friday. If not, here we go. Lord God, thank you for your continued protection over me and my family, God, and my health, and all of the listeners and viewers of this show who have stuck by me over the years, and many of them believe in you, Lord. Most of them do, and have faith in you and what their path in life should be. And Lord, can we please also send prayers out to all of the families of the victims of this terrible terrorist act in New Orleans. Senseless loss of life. So our love and our kindness and our faith goes out to all of those members of those families that suffer loss. We pray for them, Lord, and we ask for the admission to all of them to heaven, to be by your side, God. In your name we pray. Amen. So that's a show. Sometimes I poke fun at stuff, or I report on things that are what's happening in the world, but I don't put a lot of emotion into it. I try not to get too emotional about it, because it wears on me. It wears on my faith. And I ask God for the strength to continue talking about the things that I'm fearful that need to be talked about, that need to be exposed and brought into the light. I'm a Christian, and I love Jesus Christ. And you don't have to submit to that. We don't have to get in a debate about what you believe. I have lots of friends from other faiths that believe different things. I pray for them as well. But we have a real opportunity in this country. And I think about my baby, my son, William Bat Baldwin. And I think about my wife, who's a lot younger than me, and that they'll be here well after I am. And I think about what I'm going to leave them. I think about my legacy. I think about the opportunities that we have to make this world a better place, a livable place. And that the clock is really ticking right now, man. I mean, it's really ticking. And we have to do something now, right now. We have to do something to change the way we're going, the trends of what life is like for these children now compared to what it was like. Life was a lot better when I was a kid. It was a lot better. We did not, as parents, have to worry about the condition of the country the way we do now. I think that we were very close losing our way, and that it's still there to save, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of pain and hard, laborious hours to make this right again. But God, please listen to me and join me in praying for this country and trying to unify in an effort to make it a better place. I'm really frightened. I'm really frightened about what I'm going to leave behind for my family. So I'm going to end on that note. God bless you.